Words per minute. I will be asking the questions. Ready? Begin. Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My name is Teresa Thomas, and I have a couple of sites to cover with you this morning that you talked about earlier when your attorney was asking you questions on the first few days of your testimony. And then I'm going to move and cover a few other areas generally, and we'll be done. If you cannot hear me, that's usually not a problem, but if you can't, you let me know.
I can hear you.
And if you don't understand something, ask. Please tell me, because if you answer me, I'm going to assume that you understood the question and answered it correctly. Otherwise, if you need a break at any time, that would be fine, except if I have a question pending and I need you to answer that question before we take the break. Otherwise, this is up to you. What I want to talk to you about, sir, are the two jobs that you told us about where you worked on a Bell pump, okay?
Okay.
Okay, the first job that I have where you talked about that was at a Lansing department store, the way I understand it, and I'm just going to go through and try to summarize so that we don't go over again what you already said, and if you think I've gotten something, you tell me.
There was two parts to that.
Right.
There was an equipment room, a boiler room, and then what they called the annex. So actually, there was three different parts.
Okay, well, what I have in my notes, and I have the transcript here, and I've read from the day that you talked about this, is that you just worked on one Bell pump at that site, and it was a circulating pump that moved water for the heat and cooling system at the department store. Is that correct?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay, now, I was a little bit confused about where the pump was located. Was it the annex job or the equipment room? So, if you could help me out with that, I would appreciate it.
I would say it was in the equipment room.
Okay.
That's the best I can remember.
Okay, and can you tell me where the equipment room was located in the building?
There was an equipment room in a lower level in the Lansing main store. That's it.
Okay, so would it have been the basement level or some lower level if you know? If you don't know, that's a perfectly good answer.
That's what I'm going to have to say.
Okay.
I don't know which level it was.
And we do understand that we're going back a long way, and if at any time you don't remember something, that's what we want you to tell us, because all we're trying to do is find out what you can recall as we sit here today, okay?
All right.
You told us earlier, when your attorney was asking you questions, that you simply replaced the Bell pump and did not take it on this job. And what I want to know is, how did you know it was a Bell pump? Now, earlier you said there were stamps or this and that. What I want to know is, if you remember this one in particular, how you knew it was a Bell pump.
Probably how I described it in the first part of my deposition.
Okay, but you said something that there may have been a tag and sometimes there was a cast into the body.
Yes.
Do you know on this particular one which way it was?
No.
Okay.
I just know the foreman basically identified it and showed me, and I and another fellow changed out that pump.
Okay, when you were asked how big the pump was, you gave some ranges of sizes.
Yes.
And so my question to you is, would it be fair to say, as you sit here today, you can't remember the dimensions of this particular Bell pump on that day?
I can't say.
Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it is. It is a pump sitting there. You installed it. You never measured it. You may measure the suction and discharge side, but you never measured the length, the width of the pump.
Okay, do you recall if this particular Bell pump at the Lansing department store was one that a man could lift himself? Sometimes that's a good way to describe size.
There was two of us that put it on. I think there was a pad there and had bolts, and I don't know if we even used the bolts, but we lifted the old one off, and we lifted the new one on.
Okay.
Because they do have an electric motor to them.
Okay, and I just want to talk to you about the pump.
All right.
So we don't want to account how large it was.
Okay.
You said the Bell was the one that you replaced, is that right? Or was the Bell the one that you put in place of the old one?
We put a bell in.
Okay, so the Bell pump on this occasion at the Lansing department store was a brand new pump?
That's what I would have to say, because I don't think they'd put an old one back in.
Okay, and so when you took the old pump out, that would mean that you disconnected the lines to the old pump, correct?
Yes, we would have.
Okay, and you would have worked on those gaskets on those lines that were already in place, correct? Before you put the new Bell pump in, you would have to get those lines cleaned up and ready for the pump, right?
Yes, you would have.
Okay, and so by the time you sat the Bell pump, would it be fair to say that the only thing you would have worked with were the new gaskets hooking the plant or the Lansing piping to the new Bell pump at the input and output?
Yes, yes.
Okay, do you happen to remember, and if you don't, it's okay, but do you remember the size of the piping that you connected to the pump?
I am not sure.
And I have to ask these questions, and I know you probably don't remember, but if you do, we need to know. Do you know the model number of the Bell pump?
No, I didn't read that far.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
But some people, believe it or not, do remember things like that every once in a while for weird reasons.
Well, I think basically a lot of times, if you were repairing a pump, I worked with servicemen on and off. In fact, I was working with a serviceman at Lansing. They always took the model numbers because if they had to order a particular part, they needed the model number that they were working on. That's why so much of the equipment that we've talked about is identified by either PSI, model numbers, and what have you.
Right.
I didn't have to worry about taking model numbers because I was still an apprentice and I was instructed on what to do.
Right, okay, so would it be fair to say that you don't know the model number or the serial number or have any blueprints or manuals or anything on this brand new Bell pump?
No, I did not.
Thank you. Okay, the second job that I want to talk to you about, and I love love this one, the Sweetie Dog Food Plant, okay?
It was a rendering plant, and I was working out of town, and I was in between jobs, and I liked the work, never drew unemployment in my life, so I went down there and I thought it was a department store.